Jab to the right foot, step back jumper, got it. Oh my goodness, deep faves. That's terrific.
Oh, I won't be able to get to my regular open. I just realized that by not leaving a window open. So this is tip off without production on the road. It's never smooth. Bah, 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 pow. How are you? I don't have a cool wake up mug courtesy of Devin. Devin Quinn loved it on the plane last night. He just said, that is incredible. Got to let me know who did it so I can thank him. So hopefully I'll get you a thank you at some point from Quinn, however he might do that. But yes, he loved the wake up mug you got him. So nice work, Jazz fans. There's your daily DeVar for the day. How is everybody? It's Chicago, Illinois, one of the fabulous cities in America, and it wasn't supposed to hit 0 today. But I just went out, and it wasn't so bad. Now, it wasn't so bad. I was wearing a wool sweater, a North Face jacket that I got last night, which totally wasted money. Bad David. Bad David last night, but it's so good looking. But how does this suck? Okay, can I just share this with you? This sucks. So every now and then, this is not supposed to be a pity party. This is just going to be a story. Every now and then you go on one of these road trips, and some are harder to leave on than others. And this one was brutal. Like, I'm just a sap, all right? And I'm like basically about to cry when I left the house yesterday. I had such a great Christmas break with my kids. I don't know, it could be anything. It could be I had such a great Christmas break with my kids. It could be that the ski season, race season starts this weekend, and one son's in Jackson, or my son is in Jackson, my daughter's in Brighton, and I'm missing both of them. And so I just feel like I'm a total piece of you know what. It could be the Stuart Scott thing, frankly, that really rocked my world. I think I shared that yesterday. That just we started at the same time in our careers. He started ESPN2 in '93. I started on 106.5 The Score in late '92, early '93. He just did great things that opened up the doors for guys like me to broadcast differently, and I just felt very connected. And I guess I don't know, or I'm just a freak. So anyway, whatever reason, just brutal leaving yesterday, just brutal. And it's not often that I have days where I'm off my game. Like, I pretty much cherish every day. The day I go, I hope they say, man, he lived all of every day he ever had, because that's kind of what I try to do. People always ask me how I am. I say I'm great, and the alternative would suck. So anyway, yesterday was not one of those days. I did not do a very good job of that. We all went out for great pizza, and everybody's in a good mood, and I was just kind of the stick on a log or whatever, the dump on a log, or I don't know what the heck you call it. So everybody went, some people went out, Ron went in, and I went and walked. It's like 5 degrees. So I go to North Face, and I find this gorgeous thing, and fully made the homesick, feeling crappy purchase. So much money, so bad. I can't believe I did it. But it was totally therapeutic. Never done it before. Never therapeutically shopped before in my life. Fully therapeutically shopped yesterday. Kind of laughing at myself. Kind of stunned that I did it. Fully, unquestionably, therapeutically shopped last night. All right, so let's get on with the show. Can't believe I just admitted that. Oh, I probably should. So do I therapeutically take it back today too? Is that the next step? That you therapeutically go back and I got the evening of enjoyment out of it. I bought it. I felt good about it. I love it though. And do I take it back today? Is that what I do? Or do I just not eat for the rest of the trip and call it per diem? All right, let's do the NBA 5. Detroit has won 6 in a row. Last night they won off a Brandon Jennings steals. Two things on this. San Antonio, talked about this earlier this year on the Memphis game. They had 2 chances to win. I actually was talking to Brad Jones on that one. I was like, you guys actually as a coaching staff need to go watch San Antonio close the game against Memphis a few years, because it'll remind you that even the best of teams make just the most asinine mistakes. Well, they threw another game away last night. San Antonio has legitimately thrown away by bad execution late in games about 4 or 5 games. And what's funny about it, if you actually think about some of their playoffs, they do it a lot in the playoffs too. I mean, frankly, they'd have back-to-back titles if they didn't do it. Very strange. Very, very strange that that they did that. And last night, Brandon Jennings gets the layup at the end. Detroit has won 6 in a row. A large part of it is getting rid of Josh Smith. Obviously, I'm sure. But by getting rid of Josh Smith, they've opened up the middle for Andre Drummond, who's playing great. They added Jody Meeks back to the roster, who's hitting at 59% of the threes. And we talked about this yesterday. This type of player is more valuable than they've ever been in the history of the game. And we're late to realize it. The Kyle Korver, the Wesley Matthews, the Jody Meeks player. We mocked Stan Van Gundy for his signing of Jody Meeks in the offseason. I don't think that's a mock. I think the three-point shooter that is suddenly taking 7 to 8 three-pointers a game now is an incredibly valuable piece. I think it's a must-have, actually. And I think we're underestimating. I think we are underestimating how important that piece of the puzzle is to the game right now. I think we've that's the next step. We're referring to it as a specialist. It's not at all a specialist. Hey, if you can get Klay Thompson, who can shoot, that amount of threes and also do some other things, then he's really special. Then he's a max player. But the Kyle Korver idea, the idea that Kyle Korver was overpaid by Chicago, the fact that Chicago let Kyle Korver go, I mean, I know they've been fine, but the fact that Utah let Kyle Korver go, we didn't know that Wesley was this player when he left. I don't think you can bang on the Jazz for that one the same way. We knew he was a hard-fighting guy, but you never thought he was going to be shooting 7 threes a game. But this player, and Jody Meeks is one of those players, is changing the game. When we looked at the Locke offensive ratings yesterday on the show, you suddenly saw these weird players that you would never anticipate being up into this regard, kind of this this status of high-level offensive players. Well, if you're taking 8 threes a game and you're hitting 3 of them, right? I mean, you're still getting 9, and that's not even that good, right? 8 out of 3 is 38%. That's not what some of these guys are doing crazy stuff. If you're doing that, you're still getting 9 points for your 8 shot attempts, plus your floor spacing. But when you're Wesley Matthews, and Wesley Matthews is now that's why Steph Curry's probably the MVP of the league. But when Wesley Matthews is taking 8 threes a game at 40%, that's a big deal. And Steph Curry's taking 7 threes a game, 8 threes a game at 39%. Damian Lillard's taking. Why is Portland so good? Because they got 2 guys shooting 7 threes a game at 39%. James Harden's taking 7 threes a game at 36. Klay Thompson's taking 7 at 44. Ryan Anderson's taking 7 at 35. CJ Miles has become a valuable player. 6 a game at 34. Only 34? Do the math on it. That's a point a shot. That's league average, plus floor spacing. Patrick Beverley is taking 6 threes a game at 40%. Danny Green, 6 threes a game at 41%. The Danny Greens, the Wes Matthews, the Kyle Korvers. Trevor Ariza, if he could bang down a shot, he's only shooting 31%. He's crossed over. But even there, okay, Trevor Ariza is having a terrible year. He's at 7 threes a game at 31%. 7 threes a game at 31%. You know what? It's not that bad. First of all, it's spacing the floor. Second of all, he's a little under a point a shot. Okay, well, the league average is a point of possession, so you'd like to be – it's actually a little under a point of possession. Effective field goal percentage in the league average. The effective field goal percentage in the league is 50%. So, yeah, you'd like to have it be that at 7.4 shots that and he's hitting at 33%. But even shooting at 31%, it's better than any mid-range jumper. It's better than a runner in the post, right? And it's floor spacing. Now, the one thing we don't talk about enough is the value of what the value of the other team is a miss. But so fine, Trevor Ariza is taking 7.4 threes a game. He's getting 6.9 points per game out of it. That's 0.93. It's an effective field goal percentage that comes down to 46.6%. A mid-range 2 is 37.8. You're better off being Trevor Ariza shooting 31 from 3. This is where, like, the idea that Cantor has stopped shooting threes because he's only shooting 31% is not right. Let it fly. J.J. Redick, 6 threes a game, 42 points. These players have become more valuable than they've ever been before. It's an evolution. It's the next evolution in the league. We're still not there yet. Jody Meeks is a hugely valuable player. By the way, great quote by Brandon Jennings. I've never been part of a 6-game win streak before. It's his third. Love him. Few other notes for you. The lottery reform is impacting trades. Teams are scared to trade low, or let's see, low lottery picks. So like 11, 12, 13, 14, that kind of stuff, which used to be tradable because they were not great picks. But if the lottery reform goes through where there's less variance for your chance to get a top 3 pick, then those picks become valuable. Everybody's very scared to trade those picks. Interesting. Cleveland acquires Kevin Love. The 2 teams that were probably most highly involved with him other than Cleveland, Chicago and the Golden State Warriors, are right now heading toward a matchup in the NBA Finals. I mean, that could change, but that's interesting, isn't it? And I think that's it. That's your NBA 5. All right, let's talk some Jazz. Boy, by the way, love the questions for Ron Boone. We do them a little less on the road than we do at home, but still, 801-237-38. 801-237-38. On the road, we try to honor our great Jazz fans. Which also, by the way, if you have a Jazz fan that you want to nominate for Jazz Fan of the Game that deserves some recognition for Jazz Fan of the Game, 801-237-38. That's a great way to use that. 801-237-38. If someone's going to nominate Dave for Dave Week, you should do it at 801-237-38. Because Dave Week is awesome. That's a Jazz Fan of the Game type of things. Other great stories, grandma, grandpa, old fan, son, daughter, whatever. If you got somebody who deserves Jazz Fan of the Game, 801-237-38. All right, a few roster moves. We've cut Patrick Christopher. That's not a statement of Patrick Christopher, and that's not even a cruel and unusual thing to do. The fact is, it's kind of exactly what the Lakers just did with Xavier Henry. He's injured. He's probably unlikely. I know they're saying 6 to 8 weeks, but 8 weeks gets him to March 7th with a month left in the season, and that's probably then questionable whether he can play again between then and April 15th. So he's probably done for the season, which means that you release him and you pay him for the rest of the year. And that's fine because he's such a good guy, and we're good with that, as I think the organization is. And hopefully he gets rehabbed and can work his way back. It would be really an unfortunate reality if in his first NBA start his basically career comes to an end. It could be that way, though. He's going to be the Moonlit Graham version of the NBA a little bit there, though he got his bucket in L.A. It has not. There's rumors or stories that we're going to sign Elliot Williams to a 10-day contract, who was an elite level. I do not know this to be true, but there are certainly reports of it. Elite level athlete out of Memphis, crippled with injuries his entire career at Portland, from a knee to an Achilles to a shoulder, that has zapped him of some of his athleticism. He was an elite level athlete, credible athlete out of Memphis. He spent a year at Duke, then went to Memphis. And was not a great shooter, and then the injuries hit, and so suddenly your skill set needs to be very different than it was prior to the injuries. He spent the last year in Philadelphia and then part of this year in the D-League trying to evolve into a little bit of a different player. We'll see whether or not when we get him, whether he can do that or not. Elliot Williams pick up there. Trade deadline, let's see. Trade deadline stuff we're going to get into heavy for the next month. I've played around. I don't think we're going to be very active. I don't see, unless something comes up I'm not aware of, I don't see we don't have a lot of pieces that match. I look at the kind of the championship caliber teams that are going to add one more piece, and I don't see a lot of pieces that we have that match what they do. I also don't see us having a lot of interest in moving. We have primarily young guys, so who are we, what are we going to move them for? Draft picks so that we can go back up the process 2 more years? In the right circumstance, maybe, but that still seems tough. Young guys for veterans that accelerate our process or give us some leadership, maybe if the right guy's there, but it's really got to be a right guy with 2 or 3 years left on his deal, and then you wonder, well, if that guy's that right a guy for a championship caliber developing team, why did his team want to get rid of him, right? Seems strange. So we'll see how that plays. Favors and Gobert have played a bunch together. This is becoming a pretty interesting storyline for us. And they have now become the most effective big man unit that we have. They're not playing a great deal. They've played in 14 games together. They play about 8 minutes together in those 14 games on average. It's increased a little bit more recently. but they are plus 8.3, which is an exciting number. Their offense together has been okay. Their defense has been elite. Their rebounding has been out of this world. I'm not sure it's sustainable at 82%. The effective field goal percentage is not good. Their league average effective field goal percentage is 50%. Their effective field goal percentage is 47.9, but they've been getting to the free throw line a great deal. True shooting percentage, league average is about 52.8. They're at 53, so that's how they're able to do it. We play very slow with them. You have to understand, if we're going to be a Gobert favors team, we become probably 30th in the league in pace of play. Half court, defend the hell out of you, beat you 87-85. I think that's a very different concept than what we've been building toward, but it may be the answer. There's some difficulties in it. The Trevor, Booker, Ennis, Kanter lineup is not good. So if you're going to suddenly start playing around with trying to get more Gobert and favors on the floor when Ennis gets healthy, it's complicated. The easy, we got to start him. Well, first of all, I'm not sure it's worth making Ennis lose his starting job as well as he's been playing based on based on the fact that Rudy played well. Also, Ennis and Derek are even. They're bad defensively, but they're actually -4. Take it back. They're not -0.4. They're -4. They're bad defensively, but they're very good offensively, and they've been improving defensively. So if we went and suddenly ran them, I think over the last 12 or 13 games, and we've made some evolutions defensively in how we're placing our bigs on the pick and roll, then I think you're going to see that lineup's all right. So, there's a rotation that can be done here that continues it. But I do think that the favors Gobert lineup we've discovered might work a little bit better than initially thought, which is good. That's a huge step in the right direction. This road trip is going to be brutal. Ron and I watched Chicago and Houston on the plane together. They are both elite, great teams. We could have a really tough time on this trip. So don't get down if that happens. These are elite level teams. Chicago is playing at a different level. They've won 10 of 11. They have really made some big strides offensively, and Jimmy Butler has already won Most Improved Player of the Year. The question is whether he also wins MVP. But this team has won 10 of 11, 13 of 15. They're 14-4 since January 1st. They're 10-5 against teams above 500. They've won 9 of 10 at home. They have their best winning percentage since the lockout year of 11-12. Over the last 15 games, they're the 6th best offensive team, 4th best defensive team, 3rd best team overall, number 1 offensive rebounding team over the last 15 games, number 1 in second chance points, number 2 in not allowing opponents to get points off turnovers. I mean, they are just rolling. And Pau Gasol, amazing what happens when you no longer play with Kobe. Last 2 games, 28 and 15. By the way, tonight will be Pau Gasol's 42nd game against the Jazz. He's regular season. I think if you include the postseason, it's even more. He's played an entire half season against the Jazz. He averages 18 points and 10 rebounds a game for his career against the Jazz. All right, I want to look at I've not tried this before. This is a new feature that exists on NBA.com, and I want to screen share it with you, and it's working. This is, I love this, by the way. We're going to use this a lot. I really love this. If I full screen this, is it going to work? It is going to work except for the fact that I lose. Oh, let's see. So when I full screen this, what's happening is I lose the ability to. This is cool. I can run it. Oh, look at this. I can run this at halftime. All right, let's see. What are you guys getting on the screen here? That's not bad. I need to have that little control down at the bottom. All right, this is a neat set that Chicago's running. I think it's very interesting, and it fits into what I'm going to kind of keep an eye on here for a while is sets that I think could work well for the Jazz with Gobert and Favors. This is not a great one, but this is a pretty interesting set. So much of what we're seeing in the NBA now is pick and rolls with the left side of the floor space, right side open post, right? Well, this is going to turn out to be the exact opposite. If you watch Chicago come into the set, so here's the key element of the set right here. They will run this a lot. This isn't as well spaced as they usually are, but they will do this a lot during the game, and use their different players in different spots. So Derrick Rose has the basketball right now. Pau Gasol is this player right here at the top of the key. Over in the right corner is Taj Gibson, and Jimmy Butler is in the post. This is unique to them. And then they have, in this lineup, they have Kirk Heinrich spaced over the left corner. First of all, I love these graphics because it shows you how much area on the floor is spaced and what you can do with it. A lot of teams will move the Gasol figures at the top of the key out to the left side, continue that spacing, and then run some pick and roll over here. But this is an interesting overload, and more teams are doing this in the NBA. They are overloading the side of the floor that's being on the pick and roll because teams are already overloading. So if you're going to bring 4 defenders over, then I'm bringing 4 offense players over. So it's worth watching this set. Ron and I saw this a lot, and they're basically forming, for those on audio, if you're still with us, they're forming a square on the right side of the floor. So Taj Gibson in this case or Jimmy Butler's come off his post spot a little bit, and Taj Gibson is outside. I'm surprised they don't intermix these two. But so what you have is Gasol at the top. They will also run this, by the way. They'll interchange where Gasol and Rose are right now, and Rose will come off a pick and roll into this with the 2 guys on the right side. Then Gasol's rolling down the middle, and there's no weak side help at all to get to him. So if we continue to watch this, in this case, Rose just dives into the defense. They're not as spaced as well on this one. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one where they were. And usually, as I said, Taj Gibson's kind of out of place. Gibson will now come to the ball, with the ball, down the baseline. Butler will space out, and you're actually seeing that there. Gibson was just late. As the defense suffocates in on Rose, they'll pop it to Gasol at the top. Dwight Howard gives him airspace. He's just going to shoot this. But it's a pretty interesting set to watch today as you're seeing teams with 4 guys on the strong side of the court. There were better sets I could have probably chosen for you, but I wanted to let you see just the primary set there that takes place. So if we just run back through it, here's full speed. This is Houston. Beverly's possession. Beverly drove to the basket. I think he must have made it. And so here at a half-court set, they'll run it in, and then there's the key spot where 4 guys, now they interchange it a little bit. You'll see their spacing was off on this one. And that guy in the corner. So if you leave the corner to help and bring 5 guys over, that corner's wide open. They'll also run, as I said, with Rose coming left to right on a pick and roll with Gasol popping. It really gets difficult to guard at that point because you're hedging out on Rose and your big is channeling, and then Gasol's wide open at the top of the key. This time Rose, I think, is trying to get it in to maybe a cutting Gibson or Butler, but it floor spaces wrong. And you can see they then re-space out and have it going from there. It's a pretty interesting set. Keep an eye on it today. That wasn't as perfect as I would have liked. I will try to do a better and better job with those little circles. I love them, and I think it can teach you a lot about the game and see it. So I'll keep an eye on those. We'll have those throughout the road trip. I'll try when I'm watching us make a nice play or have a good play, I'll try to mark them down so I can show what we're doing offensively as well. That is to – oh, wait, questions. Since I didn't get to them yesterday. From Jonathan – are we at a point where we get concerned with Exum's complete lack of – no, not at all. He's 19, played Australian high school last year. He's not very strong. He could try to drive to the basket a bunch of times, end up in the third row, get hurt, or get blasted enough times that then he lacks aggression, then I would be a little concerned. I don't think he knows what he can do on the floor yet, and he's not big enough. He's not big enough yet to kind of deal with it. So no, not worried at all. I mean, it's a very interesting year, right? Like we thought he wouldn't be able to shoot, which he's not great, and he's ended up being a lot of a 3-point shooter. But early in the year early in the year he would drive into the paint, try to create stuff. He'd turn the ball over, and so he's trying to avoid doing that. And then early in the year he drove the basket a few times and got blasted. Aaron Hefner, I apologize if you already addressed this, but any thoughts on Bernie Lee's comments concerning your preseason words on Toure Murray? So I did address this, but I'll address it again. I'm bummed. I don't want anyone to ever think that somehow I'm hurting their NBA prospects. So it's really disappointing to me. It's bizarre, frankly. can we all understand one thing? The organization does not listen to what I say. Like Dennis Lindsay and Justin Zanuck and Bart Taylor and these guys are far, far more knowledgeable about the NBA than I am in every way, shape, or form. So, like the idea that if I say something on a broadcast, that it somehow impacts how the organization does things, not accurate at all. Probably when I addressed this, I didn't address that. The comments I made were um, Ron asked me, and I best I can sum it up best as all is like if I asked Ron today, like, oh, do you remember the conversation about Toure Murray in the open scrimmage? He'd be like, no. He was like, no. I was like, okay, my point. Ron asked me about him, and I said I thought it was going to be tough for him because in this day and age, shooting guards in the NBA have to be able to shoot a three, and he's not a three-point shooter, and he's kind of caught in between positions, and I think it's going to be very difficult for him. And then I went on to talk about something you guys have all heard a lot about, which is my whole belief on Alec Burks, that he has to shoot the three, that if you're going to be a shooting guard in this league and you don't use at least 20% of your possessions to shoot the three, it becomes incredibly difficult to be efficient. It's why I'm not a huge DeMar DeRozan fan, despite 20 points a game. And he goes to the line at an alarmingly high rate, impressively high rate. But you've got to shoot the three, and Toure hadn't done that. So those were my comments. Bernie was mad about it because he thinks Toure's a point guard, but he didn't play a lot of point guard with the Jazz, so that's why I didn't have that opinion. And he went 5 of 12 from three in 49 games in New York. I didn't classify that as a three-point shooter. Big picture, nice kid. I had a bunch of nice conversations with him. I enjoyed. He was perfectly nice to be around. I thought he was pretty bright. That's not the right word. That there's an implication I thought he wasn't bright. I thought there was a depth to him beyond basketball. I think I would bet he has some really interesting interests in free time reading and things like that are a little different than maybe you would suspect. I think more than like Gordon, who was just kind of a basketball player and gamer, right? Like Toure struck me as, I bet you, like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance would be a book that will go across his table at some point in time. I thought he had a depth to him that was different. But anyway, I'm bummed because I don't ever want to have anybody think I'm hurting the NBA prospects. So the thing I talked about the other day on the air was I feel like, I got three choices when I'm doing my broadcasting. One is to just be 100% of the time positive about everything that always happens. And I think that is a disservice to everybody. Two is to try to give you guys a fair understanding of where players stand, what's going on, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. That's what I try to do. And I don't remember my third was, but that was kind of obviously by doing that, I offended someone. So bummer. And I hope he gets a shot. And I think actually that his game will match for another team in a different setting. He'll play. Often for players like Toure Murray, for even a Jeremy Evans, for Patrick Christopher, for Elijah Millsap, getting cut, not getting a deal, like Jeremy hasn't had this happen yet, is sometimes the best. I was using Jeremy as like an established NBA guy who I'm trying to think of. Like I'm trying to use a range of players, not this is going to get me in trouble. Not specifically to Jeremy. I was just trying to think of somebody who's been on a NBA roster for 4 or 5 years as an on-off bench player. Those players, plus the guys who kind of on the roster for 10 or 12 years, plus the players who then don't really make it at first. Those players often getting cut, not having a job in the league is the best thing that ever happens to them. Because it's at that point where they have to say, all right, what I thought was good enough's not. Now I've got to change and alter my game to figure out who I am and how I'm going to play and how I'm going to fit into the NBA structure. Okay? Sometimes Wesley Matthews may have made it in this league faster than some other guys because of the fact that he was already the third or fourth option on Marquette. Morris Ullman never makes it in this league because he was the number one option using 25 possessions a game at Rice and then never evolves out of that. He never took the time to say, Like, oh, well, okay, I'm not going to be able to be that guy. How am I going to be an NBA player? And what and ends up having Morris Holman went to the D League and just kept shooting 25 times a game because he was just convinced he'd be a 20-point a game scorer in the NBA. That's the next step for all of those guys, right? Like at some point, now maybe not Jeremy. Jeremy might just have a long NBA career as the guy he is right now with his athletic skills. But Patrick Christopher kind of really had taken the time to go to Europe, figure it out, come back to the D League, and he'd evolved his game. Elijah Millsap, we may see that as well. You know, what are you going to do? How are you going to be an NBA player, not a 20-point a game D League player, not an elite college player? How are you going to be an NBA player? Frankly, Jim are getting cut at some point might help him. I'm not sure he has any other options. So, you know, that's the deal. Bottom line, I'm really bummed out that somebody thinks that I hurt the NBA prospects of an NBA player. I don't give a crap about the fact that, like, Bernie and his client and his fact that it's his money and his agent. I give less about that. But I'm bummed that, like, somebody involved with Torrey Murray thinks I was unnecessarily unfair to him. So that's a bummer to me. Do I know how Patrick Christopher is doing post-injury? It sounds as though he may not need surgery, so that's great, unless that MCL needs it. He seemed in great spirits when he was at the facility the other day. I don't know the details on this, but the bummer might be, the bummer might be that he can't work with our great strength and conditioning coach, Mark McCowan, because we waived him. That might be the real tragedy to him is that he doesn't have access to NBA elite strength and conditioning people the way he did before. Now, maybe we can figure out, I'm sure there's ways to do that, but that really might turn out to be the bummer for him or the disappointment for him. What a good dude. What a really good dude. I hope things work out for him. And, he's a good enough guy that the organization's, like, all right, fine, we'll pay you for the year. Good. Like, get healthy. Let's root for you. We're rooting for you. We'll bring, I wouldn't, if he doesn't get other offers, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't come back into camp if he can play. So, see ya. All right, let's see. Aaron Hefner, Jazz being more active in the D League now. Are we seeing the free agent trying to find diamond in the roughs or filling needs? I think we're doing three things. We're filling needs due to injuries. Two, we're trying to find diamonds in the rough. Might as well continue to use that. We've used all those. We have more. Dennis Lindsay quietly flies more people into town for workouts than you've ever seen in your life. We'll have free agent camps with like 40 people all of a sudden just one day. So he can see every player that's possibly out there. And the other thing, I love these players. And I think on a young team that could be really tired, these guys could be really valuable because they bust their ass. They really go at it, right? Like, we could be on we're going to be on the third game of a 4-game road trip against elite level teams and in Houston, and like, oh my God, here they come. And Elijah Millsap is going to come off the bench, fire it. Like, there's not going to be a day where Elijah Millsap doesn't play hard, right? Gordon and Derek could be overwhelmed by the moment. Dante could be exhausted and have his guaranteed contract. Elijah Millsap, man, he is playing. So I think there's a great value to having these guys on your roster who set a energy level and play as hard as they do. That wraps up tip-off today. I hope you're doing well. Have a good one. Bye.